Hey everyone, how's everybody doing tonight? I'm doing all right myself, and I've been working on a little project, doing some modeling, just my personal asset library for doing like ArchViz, that kind of thing. And so tonight I'm going to be redoing a model that I started of an Elgato Stream Deck. And so I'm going to start from scratch and see where it takes us tonight. Okay, if you aren't familiar with the Stream Deck, it is a unit like this. This is the one we're going to be. This is the one we're going to be taking a look at. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this image. And then, let's see here, we'll go ahead and import that image into our scene as a reference. All right. Other nice part is I do have one of the units here myself. So I'm going to be using this one for reference. And I got my trusty calipers here so I can get some decent measurements on it. I really recommend, if you're doing any kind of precision modeling and you have the object in front of you, getting a cheap pair of calipers just off of Amazon for like 10-15 bucks is a really good choice. These can, I mean, these will really make the difference. Some people are super good at just eyeballing measurements, and I gotta say, I am not one of those people. I can kind of guess sometimes, but when it comes down to it, I am absolutely terrible at guessing measurements. So having a set of calipers is super helpful. Also looking up on Google, just, whatever you're trying to model, just look up, whatever it is, dimensions. And a lot of times you can find schematics that will show you, oh, it's 170 millimeters wide or whatever. So, definitely in looking for references, don't just look for images, but also look for actual measurement references. It adds just that extra realism, because your eye, you're used to looking at stuff, and when the sizes of things are off, especially if it's something you're going to be looking up close at, your eye will notice immediately. Now, if it's something that's going to be far away in the scene, and you want to just kind of guess at it, that's fine. And you might be really good at estimating measurements. So you do you. But let's get into this one. I'm going to start with kind of the top deck of this thing. Just taking a quick measurement here, and I'm going to be doing all my measurements in metric. I am in the US, so I definitely I think in imperial units, like just by default. But Blender really works best in metric, because the Blender units are already subdivided by 10. When you do it by 12, it just gets weird, and then it just doesn't, it's not great. So I would really recommend doing your measurements in metric when you're doing this. There are some places where you can put in imperial measurements, which is great. Like, let me just show you real quick. So if I've got something selected, say this cube here, and I come over to the dimensions, if I want to make this cube, 1.5 feet cubed, I can click and drag down all three of these and then do 1.5 single apostrophe, 1.5 feet, hit enter, and boom, it converts it to metric for you. I don't know if it works with yards. 1 yard, maybe? Apparently it works with yards as well. And I would guess miles. Yeah. So it will do that. It doesn't work everywhere. That's the problem. It doesn't work like if you do the scale modifier, you can't do like move or like get z 1 foot. That doesn't work, which is unfortunate. But the dimensions here, it does work. Make sure if you change the dimensions, make sure if you edit these here and say you do 2 feet, make sure to apply your scale so that your scale stays 1 here. That's just going to cause you problems later on if you don't do that. So back to the task at hand. Let's see here. So we have a width of 100 and let's see, that's 118 millimeters wide. So I'm going to jump into top view, and along my x-axis, I will do 118 millimeters. Boom. All right. Now that we're starting to get a scale here, I'm going to zoom in. I really do recommend, excuse me, I really do recommend modeling to scale. It's going to help you out in the long run, especially when you start adding in lots of things, or if you have libraries of objects, having them to scale is really a good way to go. All right, so then my next measurement is, and the answer is 85 millimeters. All right, so that would be along my Y. So that's 85 millimeters. And then the thickness, if I remember correctly, is 3 millimeters. But I'm just going to double check that. Yeah, 3 millimeters. So my Z on this is 3 millimeters. And now that I've done that, I'm going to Control A and apply my scale. I'm going to turn on my keystrokes here for you. That's be good. All right. All right. Hold on just a moment. Okay, back to it. All right, so this is the top here. The next thing we want to do is we want to round off the corners. So I'm going to measure kind of how much these are rounded. About 4, I would say, a radius of about 4 millimeters. So, a couple ways we could do this. The first ways we could try to do it destructively. We could select the 4 corners. I just did a Control Alt click. that does a ring selective loops there. And then, so now with those selected, I can do Control B for bevel and round that off. And, you know, boom, there we go. And so if I did millimeters, that would be that. The issue there is, of course, that is a destructive action. So, you know, we've got to take that into account. So I'm going to undo that. And what I'm going to do now is go into my vertex groups, and I'm going to add a new vertex group. And I'm going to call this one corner bevel. And I'm going to assign those. Now, I'm trying to think if this is going to do what I want or not. You know what? This isn't the way I want to do it. I'm sorry. What I do want to do, though, is in edge select mode, do an edge crease on these. And so I will crease those. Okay. And now I'm going to add a bevel modifier and use the limit method here as the weight. Of course. Oh, that's fun. Why aren't you working? Edge bevel weight. Maybe if I had added my edge bevel weight instead of yeah. That's what I get for streaming so late at night. All right. So now let's try this again. Edge bevel weight of 1, and then I can add these segments in here. Now this is procedural, and if I want to increase that later, I can increase it while leaving the simplest mesh possible. Okay, so next, let's go ahead and let's think about the cutouts for the buttons. Well, yeah, that's fine. We'll do the cutouts for the buttons. So, the buttons themselves are 16 millimeters square. So I'm going to create a button that's a placeholder for now. And so now if we zoom in here, I'm just going to add a cube, and I'm just going to make it 16 millimeters in all directions. Apply scale. Okay, that'll be good for now. We can mess with this in a minute. But this is going to be our cutout. So what we're going to want to do is figure out exactly where the bottom corner is, and it looks like we're at 11 millimeters from the edge. So if I come down here, grab this, 1, 2, 9, 10, 11. So that's the corner. That's the corner piece, where we're going to want to cut out. So if I were to just select this and then select this and do a Control minus. Oh, do I not have? Okay, here's a good example. I just upgraded to the new version, and so my apparently my boolean tools add-on is not enabled. So here's how you would enable that. Go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and type in bool, and we're going to add the bool tool add-on. Okay, Now with that enabled, I'll select this is going to be my cutter object, and this is what I want cut, and I'll do a control minus. And then my cutter here, I'm going to rename to cutter. And then I'm going to move my cutter to a new collection. I'm going to call that new collection hide. So with that in that collection, I can just go ahead and uncheck that collection just to get it out of my viewport. It's still there, but now I've got a hole. Okay, cool. So next, we want to make enough holes for all the buttons. So bringing back my cutter, I'm going to add an array modifier to it. Okay, so the array modifier, the Stream Deck is 3 rows of 5 columns. So we'll go ahead and do our columns first. So we need 5 of these. Now, we can do relative offset, and this is going to use the bounding box of each cube to determine how far to place. So you can think of this, this 1, it's going to offset it 1 bounding box over. So if I do like 1.1, that's 1.1 bounding boxes away. So we don't have, we would have to eyeball the distance. So that's really not what we want to do. Instead, we're going to do a constant offset. And so these boxes were 16 millimeters. So if I put in 16 millimeters, that's the same as 1 relative offset. So the distance actually on these things is about, we are looking at 3.5 millimeters between each button. So if I add 3.5 to 16, I get 19.5 millimeters. Boom. There we go. So that's great. That gives us our columns. So now we want to do our rows. To do that, I'm going to add a second array modifier. Okay, so I'll add the second array modifier. It's going to be 3 counts. Again, we'll go with constant offset, but instead of it being an X offset, it's going to be a Y offset. And we'll do the same 19.5 millimeters. And there we go. So we have our cutouts now. That looks pretty decent. I'm gonna hide my cutters again because we don't need those for now. Let's do this just before we get rid of those for good. Let's go ahead and parent the cutter to this top. So I'm going to click on the cutter, click on the parent, or on the deck here, and do Control P, set parent to object. Now if this gets moved around, the cutter moves with it, and the cuts stay in place. Handy. Okay. Next, let's do some buttons. The buttons should be pretty easy. Actually, you know, as I'm looking at this, the cutouts are have beveled edges. I did not take that into consideration, but because we did this procedurally, it's going to be super easy to fix. So going into top mode, editing my cutter object, I am going to go ahead and go into edge mode, do that same ring select, and I could do the same thing here that I did with the other one. I could right click and set the bevel weight to 1, and then add a bevel modifier, but I'm going to move this before the array modifiers. And these are tiny ones, so this would be like 2 millimeters. There we go. So you see, when you're doing this procedurally and trying to use as many modifiers as possible, you can go back and make some of these changes easily. If I had made these cuts separately, I would have had to go back into each separate one and done those edges, and it would have been a mess. But instead, this is pretty clean looking so far. All right, now hide those cutters. Next, let's add the buttons. So we'll start with the cube, because why not? Shrink that down, get it into place here. Something like that. All right, I'm gonna take a quick measurement of how far these stick out. And it looks like they stick up all of 2 millimeters. So if I level this out with the top, then I can say get, hold down Control, and bump it up 2. And there we go. I'm going to add my same beveled edges. And I'm just gonna get it so it fits in the hole there. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a second bevel modifier. This one is to get the top. And so our first one was using the bevel weight. And so that rounded out the corners really nice. And only the corners. But we want a much smaller bevel all over the top. It doesn't have the same thickness of bevel going across the top edge as it does around the side edges. So what we'll do is we'll just bring this down and add a couple more subdivisions there. And that looks pretty good. We'll shade that smooth. And yeah, that looks all right. Okay, cool. So now let's go ahead and add our array modifier to the buttons. Again, we're going to do constant offset. Now let's apply scale on this, because you always need to apply scale. And of course, applying scale now. See, this is why you want to apply scale before you do things like a bevel modifier, because it takes scale into account, which drives me crazy sometimes, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. So that. Then here, too much. Later. Yeah, okay, there we go, cool. All right, back in action. Now, we got 5 across the bottom, and we'll do 19.5 millimeters, just like we had the other ones, and boom, right in the holes. This is the nice thing about not eyeballing it, is that every once in a while, things line up really nice. So, yeah. Let's do that again for our columns. Constant offset of 19.5 millimeters. Boom. And there we go. All right. Starting to come along. Starting to look like a little something. I'm going to shade this smooth, and of course that really makes this ugly. But then what we're going to do is come here into the object data tab of our properties window, go to normals and auto smooth this. That way we get nice smooth edges along the side here. But because this angle is over 90 degrees or over 30 degrees, it still shades that sharp. All right, I'm going to jump into rendered mode. Actually, let me save this real quick. Auto stream. Why is my cap locks on? Auto stream deck. Cool. All right. I'm going to jump into cycles. Do some viewport denoising. Optics. Okay, yeah. We're starting to get there. Now, one thing I do notice about these buttons is they're not completely flat across the top like this. They actually have a little bit of a divot on the inside, so I do want to add that. I think what I'm going to do is, let's see how this looks. If I just grab this and depress this just a little bit. Camera down in here. Cool. Yeah. It's just a subtle little divot in the middle there. Just kind of breaks up that surface a little bit. I think it's a bit more extreme than that. I probably actually have a little too much bevel on these as I look at the actual device. So that top bevel, which is this one, I could probably maybe go down to 0.05. Yeah, that looks a little more like the actual device. Cool. All right. So that takes care of like the top geometry. Now what we want to look at is use my face as some contrast here, and the side profile of this puppy. Let me see here real quick. I'm just looking real quick if I can find a good profile image. I'm not seeing one right off. That's fine. That's fine. So here's what we're going to do. Going into side view, take some measurements here. All right, so what we have is the box that's the base of this thing. I'm going to bring in just a placeholder here real quick, and we will get it kind of, we're just going to rough it out into shape. So this this top piece is 3 millimeters thick. I'm going to take these buttons and also parent them to this top piece. So now I can move the top piece and my buttons move with it. And so now when this thing is flush with the desk, the back of this is 17 millimeters to the top edge here. So I'm going to move this up. And so we've got 10 to here, and 17 puts us right there. Okay, so I'm going to get this back edge here and at least move this up to about there. And this is in about 2 millimeters from the edge. There's about 2 millimeter overlap right there. So that gives us that. Then on the front side, the device is 14 millimeters from the top. Okay. So 14 is right about there. Okay. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this side and bring it up to 17. So what I want to do is I want to match this, the top of this, with this. Kind of like that. Okay, that gets me my approximate angle that I'm going for. All right, now, if I go ahead and measure this thing, we have 79 millimeters. Grab this and bring it down. Overlap just a little. That's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Nine. Center that. Put that right about there. And then the bottom is at 72. And from the looks of it, this comes in just a hair. And then this needs to come back. So one way we could do this pretty easily is if I come up to my overlays and do edge length. I grab this. I can bring this in. I'm going to apply scale so we get the right measurement, and I'm going to come over here, and since I am working in such small sizes, meters really isn't the best choice here. So I'm going to go with millimeters, and so that way here now when I do this, I actually get millimeters there shown to me. So now that is actually 72 millimeters. And here I'm going to kind of eyeball the angles because I don't have a protractor with me. I can't measure these angles exactly, but we can get them pretty darn close. And then we want to add we're going to add 2 millimeters at the bottom for the little rubber feet. So I'm going to just grab this and move it up. 1, 2. There we go. Now, of course, that isn't right, but we're okay. We can just grab it, select it all, and pull it out until we get the right size here. And it looks like we have about that same 2.5, 3 millimeter overhang. So 1, 2, 3. It's the same on that side. 1, 2, 3. Yep. And then it is just a hair smaller underneath, like that. All right. So now we're really starting to get somewhere. This is starting to really feel like the actual device. All right. Again, like before, our bottom unit here, we're going to do a ring select. And we're going to do bevel weight, add a bevel modifier, maybe do say 6 millimeters. No, that's way too much. Oh, angle needs to be weight. There we go. Gonna hide this for a second so we can get a better look at it. Round that off there. And hey, Franz Fiedler, how you doing? Good morning to you. Yeah, it's 11:30 at night here in lovely Midwest USA. Right. So here we go. Now if I unhide this. That's looking all right. Taking another measurement here. Yeah, no, that's good. All right. Now on the bottom of this thing, we've got little feet that are 8 millimeter half circles that are 2 millimeters tall. So we're going to go ahead and add those to the bottom just for completeness here. And we'll just do UV spheres. And I can definitely get rid of my edge length, that's for sure. Don't need that anymore. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of maybe about that much. Bring these down. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That big, and squash it a little bit this way. Apply scale. And these puppies are at 7, yeah, about 7 millimeters in from each corner of the bottom. So I'll jump to the bottom here. What am I doing? Going crazy. You get me in front of people and I go crazy. It's just nuts. All right, so here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That looks good right about there. And let's keep up with our proceduralness that we've been doing so far. I'm gonna go ahead and actually make sure snap my cursor to the world origin. Yep, that's good. And then I am going to go to Object, Set Origin, Origin to 3D Cursor. Okay, so now this is the center point of my object. Here's my object. I'll go to Modifiers, Add, Mirror, boom. And I want to mirror this both on the X and Y. So now I get 4 feet for the price of 1. And I'm just going to go in here, bring this whole thing down a little bit. Shade those smooth. And yeah. All right. I'm going to take those and I'm going to parent those to this bottom part, and what I'm going to do is, now that things are getting in place as far as the entire object is concerned, I'm going to go ahead and add an empty. No. Sure, that one looks fine. Shrink it down so it's not really dumb looking. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and parent this and this to the empty. And so now my empty is going to control my overall placement of the object rather than any of the given any of the given pieces. You could parent everything to the empty, but kind of dependent parts, you probably want to have some kind of chain. I don't know. For something like this, it probably doesn't matter. So is it spring there in Berlin, or I would imagine it's spring. Kind of on the same, you're a little bit higher latitude than me, but that's cool. Still, even in this day and age, it's crazy to think, I'm sitting here in Illinois, and you're sitting third of the way around the world, watching my stream live. That's nuts. All right, back at this puppy here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this piece up just a little bit. I'm going to hit I to inset the top and then extrude that down. This is just going to put a little well underneath underneath the buttons, and this is going to come in handy when we want to light a little bit of spring called frilling. Frilling, is that right? Is that how you would say that? Frilling? It's been a long time since I took a year of German in junior high. Like 30 years ago. Okay. So this is the bulk of the modeling for this object. So let's jump into some textures. So I'm going to go into shading. And we're going to stick with pretty simple textures. Nothing too crazy. So let's just create our black, just our black plastic texture. So our base color, you don't want to jump to pure black. It can be problematic. I mean, you get pretty close, but if you go absolute black, it's just, it can just be troublesome. Hold on just a moment. Okay, sorry. So both this piece and this piece are going to have this black texture, so we'll call this black plastic. And this is not very specular, and it does have a fair amount of roughness. So we're going to leave it right about there for now. The next thing we want to do is we'll get the little feet here. We'll set them to the black plastic. Then we're going to hit the single user button. And we'll call this black rubber. And this is actually like some really shiny rubber. So we'll bring the roughness on that pretty far down. Like that. Okay. You know, if these were going to be a bit more prominent, I would probably spend a little more time on those feet, but again, save your time. You know, even if this is going to be a close-up piece, if you know that part of this is never going to be seen or barely going to be seen, don't waste a lot of time, you know, hacking away at something that you're just that's just going to be a waste of your time. So next, we need our buttons. So our buttons, we'll do new, and these need to be transmissive. That way they are clear. We're just gonna add a touch of transmissive roughness, just so they're not perfectly clear. That's kind of up to you. All right. So now with that in place, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take all of this stuff and I'm going to move this into a new collection, and I'm going to call this collection Stream Deck. Okay, now back in my main collection, I'm going to add a floor. And I'm going to go ahead and go to my world shading. And I'm going to, oh, you think you have everything ready, but you don't. I also need to re-enable Node Wrangler. There we go. Okay, now open up an HDR file. Jump to my GPU compute. Why is that grayed out? I don't like that. Oh. That would be why. There we go. Scare me there. All right. And so now if I jump to rendered mode, all right, that's looking better. Now let me get my let me see. All right, so I need to get our logo here on this particular item. So I'm going to, for one, take this bottom piece and make that single user. And then this top is going to be black plastic with logo. Okay. And I'm going to append from another file that I've got. Let's see here, where did I put it? Oh yeah, I know where it is. So, all right, so going into UV editing, I've got the logo that goes across the top. And to start with, I'm just going to grab all of the UVs and just drop them down here in the corner like this, just because I want to. And then I'm going to come back, grab this top plane, unwrap that, and get this moved into place. The logo is about, it's right in the middle, and it's in between the middle 3 buttons. So right about there works pretty well. Okay, so that's good. Now let's jump back to our shading. the image is currently set to repeat. I don't want that. I want this to extend. That means whatever pixels are on the outside edge of the image would then go on indefinitely from there on out. So now we have that. Now we are using the black color here is from our image, and so we don't really want that. We want to actually mix a couple of colors here. So I'm going to do a mix shader. And we'll use the color close. There we go. Okay, so now where the image was black or 0, we're getting this first shader, and where it was white, we're getting the second shader, rather than the image, the colors from the image itself, because I believe the image was pure black, pure white, so we don't want that. We want our own colors here, and then that way, you know, if we want to kind of tone this down, not have pure white on the logo, we can do that. And then, of course, we didn't do pure black on the plastic either. So there we go. We're starting to get there. For a little bit more visual interest, we'll just add we will add a texture to the table that we've got here. Sure, why not? Lovely yellow color. Okay. Now, of course, we'll want a chord coming out the back of this thing. Super easy way to do that. We'll just add a Bezier curve. Grab the back of it like this. Stick it into the back of the unit. Subdivide it. Maybe something like sure, why not? And then we'll grab this and bring it up just a hair. Then in our curve window, we'll go and we will just add some bevel to it. We'll say this is a 3mm card, maybe 2.5. Sure, that's great. And we will give it the same, maybe the black rubber. Actually, no, that uses more of a we're gonna do this, and this one is more rough. So now, I would say the last thing that we would do really on this is maybe light up some of these buttons for some visuals. So what I'm going to do is come in And really, the back of each one of these has a little LCD screen. So we'll come in and we'll add the LCD screen here. Like this. And now these we are actually going to have separate. The reason for that is we would really like to be able to have separate what am I trying to say? We'd like to have separate images on each button, ideally. And we're not going to do that tonight, but, you know, it's doable. So if I come in here, I grab these and rotate them and put them just under these buttons, just like this. And then I parent those to that object as well. Oh, here's a nice feature if you didn't know this one. If you are, if you've got a bunch of objects like this, you can come in here and you can hit F2 to rename an object. But if you do this and you hit Control F2, you can do a batch rename. This is kind of a, I don't know, for some people this is like a hidden feature, but whatever, that's cool. But then you can come here, you can do a find and replace, you can do a set name, you can strip out characters, or you can change the case if you want. I'm just going to set the name, and I'm going to set all of these to screen, and set that to the new name. Now, because there's 15 of them, it's going to number them for me, so it should have screen through screen 15, or screen, and then screen 001 through 14. So super handy. Also, I want to move those to the Stream Deck collection. The feet need to move to the Stream Deck collection. Let's see, the plane, that's the floor. Light, that's our reference image. Camera, Bezier cord, we'll move that one to the Stream Deck as well, and that's our cord. All right. Now that we've done that, now let's go ahead and make one of these a screen. I'm going to split this and do that. Okay. So super easy. As the one YouTube channel says, super easy, barely an inconvenience. With that screen selected, I'm going to do a Control T because I have Node Wrangler installed. That adds a texture coordinates, a mapping, image texture, plugs it into our base color. And I am going to open. Got some let's see here. Where did I put them? That's the next question. Oh yeah, here we go. All right. So if I pull in a Stream Deck icon, so if I pull it to just the base color, it's not, I mean, it's not horrible, but it's not great. It's not an LCD screen. It's not generating any light. So I don't want this plugged into my base color alone. I want this plugged into my emission. And now it's emitting light in the color of my thing. So now I can do use the emission strength to make it brighter. And voila, now I've got an actual light under here. It's doing that. And, you know, you can, of course, make that way too bright if you want. You know, find the level that that works for you. And then, of course, you can do whatever you like here. What's nice is Elgato actually has a stream, like an icon creator, if you have a Stream Deck. And so, you know, this is super easy then to come in here and go, okay, I want, let's do this crown icon. We'll save that. And I want, I don't even know. Sure, this, whoop. I want this light bulb icon, and I want sure, that one. Now I can come back in here, grab this material, and I'm just going to call this one play screen. I'll do this, and then I can just, you know, change my icon. So that's image screen. Boom, and I can come to this one, grab image screen, do single user, then choose a new, you know, YouTube, and you know, I can just start filling in these buttons. All right, so now we've, you know, we've got something put together. You know, how can we, you know, let's go ahead and drop this into a real scene. So I've put, I'm gonna move my hide into this group. This collection, there shouldn't be anything else in there now. So on my Stream Deck, I'm going to right click and I'm going to mark this as an asset. Okay. And then if you're using one of the newer versions of Blender, I think it's under experimental in 2.92 and enabled in 2.93. Don't quote me on that. The asset manager. I can come in here, the asset browser, and there's my object. You know, one thing I've been doing on these is collections. It doesn't currently create a preview for you for a collection. So what I will do is, you know, I'll go ahead and just get a basic and just get it in the screen, basically save a screenshot, Save that. Then I will open up that screenshot. And I will crop that down. Whoop, cancel. Yeah, undo. This Windows image editor is really way too touchy. Okay, cool. There we go. And then I'll save that. Hopefully this can get worked into the asset browser at some point. But now that I've got that, I can do that. Now I've got a nice icon there. And put that there. All right. So now that I've got that saved, let's open up a different file. And where did I put that file is the next question. Oh yeah, I know where I put it. Okay, cool. All right, so here I have a basic little scene I've been putting around with lately. There we go. Seen in some of my videos. Actually, one of my recent videos, I rigged up these pieces of furniture. They're actually in the file as appended, but I can come in here and I've got them so that the drawers open and close only as far as they go. Which is nice. And this return on the desk is similar. So nice for kind of hosting your scene. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put the the first, which is kind of the standard way I could append it, that will create the original file back into this file, completely separate from the original file. Linking will make uses the other file as a library. So if you make changes in the other file, those changes will be reflected here. So if I do a link and I pull up the file and link, and then I come into that document, go to collection, and there's the Stream Deck collection. Sure, it's put on the top of the desk. And Debbie, that's one way to do it. In this case, that collection is brought in when you link that in. That collection is brought in as an entire unit. Oh yeah. Let me turn that off. If that's giving you a problem, I'm gonna pause the rendering there. So okay, so the collection is brought in as a whole unit, and you can't edit pieces of it. If you want to, you'll need to go to Object, Relations, Make Library Override. Object, Relations, Make Library Override. Yep. Okay, now you'll see jump into what just happened. Where'd you go? Oh, ha! Jumped over there. When I made the library override, it decided to move away from me. So when you do it this way, there we go. Okay. So you'll see here these little link icons with the arrows through them. Those parts have been overridden. But what you'll find is that some parts have not. So, like the chord here, you see how the Bezier curve data object still has the link icon, and it doesn't have the library override icon. That means while I can still get to this and I can edit object level properties, I can't edit data level properties on this object. To do that, I would have to go here, right click, and say make library override. Now, make library hierarchy. It just gets trickier. I'll just put it that way, to edit these things if you're bringing them in as a library override. So just keep that in mind. Things like a chord like this, I would delete that and I would create a new chord for this scene. Is probably a good idea. So another way you could do this, and this is kind of the beauty of the asset browser, and asset browser is still in development, so keep that in mind. So if you're using 2.93 beta, or if you're even jumping into 3.0 alpha, I like to live on the edge. You get some crashes from time to time, but you get to also play with the new tools. In the asset browser, if you'll see here that I've actually got, well, it's in the current file. Where's my default? My file paths are not set up yet. Blender assets is my documents, Blender assets. Okay. Jump over there real quick and move that file in. Grab you. Under assets. Okay. I refresh this. Okay, there we go. So in case you are new to the asset browser, under File, under Edit Preferences, under File Paths, you can add as many. Good morning, Oksana. So you can add as many paths to the library override as you like, or to the asset browser as you like, and you can name them different things. For instance, I've got to reset these ones up because I just put on 3.0. Under my Blender, under my assets folder, I actually have some additional things like a furniture folder. And so I'll call this one furniture. Close that out. And now here I have default and I have furniture. And so I have a bunch of files under here that I can drag in, and I've been working. It's mostly IKEA furniture, because you can find a lot of references for it, and a lot of the dimensions you can find those online as well. But this is great because then what you can do is in your scene, I need a bookcase. Let's drag it in. And there it is. Of course, I put it in front of my lights, so we want to... Sure, we'll put it right there. So anyway, back to our Stream Deck. If I go to my default, that's where I stuck the file we just made in my default asset browser library. I can go ahead and grab this, drag it into my scene, drop it on there, put it in place. Of course, I've got a pretty hefty depth of field going. That's a little better. All right. So that's basically the project that I wanted to show tonight. Let me jump back over to the file that we worked through. Again, if things on your object are separate pieces, if this is something that's built out of separate pieces, it's not cheating to build them as separate objects or separate meshes and then drop them in a collection. They don't have to be one unified mesh. There's no rule that says that. I know some people get really hung up on making things all one mesh and putting it all together. But when you're doing this with modifiers, like here, like the buttons had 4 different modifiers on them. And this top piece had 2 different modifiers on it. And this piece has 1 modifier on it. And the cutters that I hid, those had 3 modifiers on it. If this was all one object, that's going to be a lot harder to... you're not really going to be able to do that unless every modifier you're using does like vertex groups and that kind of thing, and not all of them do. So have them be separate objects. Then just stick them all in a collection. Parent them to, to the parts that make sense to parent them to, and do it that way. It'll make your modeling life a whole lot easier. And in a case like this, like I said just a little bit ago, I would probably, like in my final thing that I put in my asset library, I would not put this chord in there. I would just model that. I would drop it into my scene, and then I would just throw in a curve, set it to like 3 millimeters, set it to black, and boom, be done with it. Rather than fight with a predefined shape that I've got to do, or to come up with some kind of rig for this, like add like hooks to the vertexes of the curve. Like that would just get so messy. So I wouldn't do that if I were you. Or, well, I'll put it this way, do whatever you want. It's certainly no skin off my teeth. And I am not I'm not the end-all be-all of this. There's definitely better people with better advice out there. So, my advice is worth what you're paying for it, for sure. Anyhow, thanks so much for everybody who hung out on the stream tonight. It's exciting to, to have people actually want to hang out and want to watch. Watch as I do this. It's great to see some names of some folks who've been commenting on my regular videos. I'm really glad that you're finding the channel helpful. Make sure to share it on your social media if you've got friends who do any kind of stuff with 3D. Share the channel with them. Get it out there. The more interaction I get, certainly the more I want to continue making content that makes doing Blender and 3D easier for people. And I'm passionate about the subject. I might not be the best artist out there. I'm definitely not the best artist out there. There's a lot of Blender folks who are doing a lot more cool stuff than I am. But I love the piece of software. I've been using it for, good grief, 21 years, something like that. And I just enjoy it. And so I wanted to share that joy with you. So, anyhow, so if it's morning time for you where you're at, have a great day. If it's nighttime where you're at, get some sleep. I know I'm going to be heading off to bed here too. So, until next time, join the Discord. You can check out any of the videos on my stream or in my YouTube channel. I've got a link to the Discord server. If you're not already on the Discord server, join up and chat there. It's still pretty small. We might only have 8 or 9 people there currently, but we would love to have you if you are not already signed up. Thanks, Zyron. I appreciate the encouragement. You all have been super encouraging, and I really appreciate that. So, anyhow, I guess instead of rambling on here for another 10 minutes, it's time to say goodnight. thanks again for coming out, and I'll see you next time. I hope this inspires you to make something awesome. Later.